The real issue is not abroad. I'm sure the Swamiji must have told you in the first session in this Vedanta lecture that ultimately you must look inward. If you want to conquer the world, you must first set your house in order. What is our unique selling proposition? What is the single biggest factor that changed the perceptions and reshaped India's image in the eyes of the rest of the world? That is the educated manpower, people like Professor Khanna. They went and conquered. They proved to the world that they are in no way secondary to anybody in the world. In fact, we claim that we have the world's second or third largest technical manpower pool. But let's be truthful and realistic. We have the potential to have the world's second or third largest technical manpower pool. In reality, we are grossly underperforming. Our higher education is in a mess, let alone literacy that Amartya Sen talked about. Professor Khanna mentioned that. But our higher education is in a state of collapse. A few world-class management institutions and IITs do not constitute a world-class infrastructure for the country and its future, if you want to really play a global role. Sanjay told me that tomorrow his article is going to appear in the Financial Express, seeking the sack of Professor, I don't know if he's a true professor or not, Professor Joshi, Murali Manohar Joshi, the Minister of Education. There is no conception of education. I'm not bothered about trivia of the IIM fee and things like that. I'm looking at the university system. It's a disgrace. We take some of the brightest youngsters and convert them into monkeys in a few years' time. And there are a few non-monetary inputs. You don't have to think of high-tech rocket science, simple non-monetary inputs. As I understand, no Harvard scholar can go back to Harvard and be a teacher immediately after his master's or his doctorate. MIT or Stanford or anybody else, they don't allow this kind of incestuous academic activity. They want cross-fertilization of ideas. But to simply adopt this practice does not require money. It doesn't require genius, it requires common sense. I remember seeing a New Zealand university advertising for its president globally. A small, tiny country of 3 million people asking for a university president from across the world. I remember a professor in biological sciences telling me some time back from one of the Indian universities that he was in a small little country called Eritrea. Many of you might not even remember where that wretched place is. I said, how was it there? He said, there's no comparison. I said, was it that bad? He said, no, it's so wonderful compared to Indian universities. Eritrea, damn it. A second example of educational excellence, for instance. The system of electives was started in Harvard some 130 years ago by Charles Eliot. Even today, when you go to undergraduate, postgraduate schools in this country, and you all have gone to this country, I'm sure, in some of these schools, you have this prefabricated set of academic curricula. At CBZ, by PC, and some other nonsensical combination, without a perception of anything that matters, without adding value, without making you decision makers, without making you wealth creators in the true sense of the term. Or take the examinations. All that matters is ignore last year's question papers, mug up the 3 preceding year's question papers and their answers, and you're sure to get a 75% grade, and you call yourselves a masters, and so on, so subject. We have to significantly alter the nature of education because that is our unique selling proposition, and the future is going to be shaped by education. And of course, healthcare. Regional inequality. Take the state of Bihar. Its per capita income already is under 1/4 of India's richest state among major states, and that is Maharashtra. And this ratio is going to be 10-to-1 in the next 8 to 9 years at the current rate. We cannot afford that. Population. Happily, some states are showing the way through a few strategic initiatives, notably Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh in recent times, but through different routes. We can do it, but we have to do it across the country. But finally, Mr. Chairman, let me conclude. Can a modern economy coexist with medieval polity? Some 25 years ago, Daedalus, an American journal, was talking about American medicine, and they came out with a wonderful expression. They said, doing better and feeling worse, is this an apt description of American medicine? Well, that may or may not be, but that I think is an apt description of what India is today. We certainly are doing better, but we're also feeling worse in many respects, and we don't deserve to. We don't need to. We can make a difference only if there's a significant political reform, because economic reform, absolutely necessary, but not sufficient. Corruption has come down in some areas like telecommunications, railways, and many other sectors. The range of goods is expanded, the choices are greater, the prices are stable. We are happy. But corruption has shifted to more dangerous areas. Take the Telegi stamp scam. Take Sachin the dubious murder in Gaya. Take the leak of question papers by Sanjeev Kumar. I don't know if you read it in newspapers. That fellow's annual income was 100 crore rupees from examination leaks alone. And his dream was to be the next MP, and would have surely been the next minister. Why only an MP? And of course, take the case of the arrest warrants issued against the President of India and the Chief Justice of India for 40,000 rupees. The issue is not about corruption. The issue is about shifting corruption from the economic areas of decision-making to the sovereign spheres of decision-making, from where the state cannot be rolled back. That can and must be addressed, but only through significant political and governance reform. If we really care for economic growth, if we want to be global champions, if we want to be among the 6 global powers that Kissinger predicted, then we have to set our house in order. And one of the most important ingredients is going to be the way our polity is shaped. We must make sure that integrity and survival in public office are compatible. Some 15 years ago, in the then Soviet Union, similar conditions prevailed. There was a very popular story in those days, I believe in a Moscow Russian shop. In front of a Russian shop, some 200 people queued up to get a few crumbs of bread. They waited and waited and waited for hours. A superpower, no bread. One young man lost his temper, and ultimately he walked out, stormed out in protest, and said, "I'll go and kill the General Secretary in Kremlin." The others waited. Still there was no bread in sight. He came back after 3 hours. They all gathered on him and asked him, "What happened?" He said, "Have you killed the General Secretary?" He said, "I went there to kill the General Secretary, but there was a much longer queue waiting there." They simply waited. They did not do what was necessary in time. They hoped that somebody, somewhere, would take care of the problems. The day of reckoning came in 1991. The nation, you know what happened, became 15 fragments. Soviet Union is a pale imitation of its past. Russia is now floundering. It will come back, surely, but there's a lot of needless suffering. We will make a substantial impact on the world in the next 50 years. This century could yet be India's along with China's, but only if we now act decisively with clarity and conviction, not by daydreaming. Thank you.